Life was an eternal struggle between good and evil. The ancients knew the way to placate the beast that lurked beneath the eternal sea. Before the dawn of civilization,
in the early light of man's existence, life was an eternal struggle between good
and evil.
The ancients knew the way to placate the beast that lurked beneath the eternal sea.
Life was an eternal struggle between good and evil. The ancients knew the way to placate the beast that lurked beneath the eternal sea. Before the dawn of civilization, in the early light of man's existence, life was an eternal struggle between good and evil. The ancients knew the way to placate the beast that lurked beneath the eternal sea. Before the dawn.
Well, in any case, I got order from Mars this morning. Yes, this commercial we have to do completely naked.
Oh, we have to do it naked?
Yes, so I'm already prepared if you are.
Sure. Can I wear my phony tatas?
If you want to wear your phony tatas, that's up to you. It's all good. Just
Now that would be hilarious, eh?
yes, it would. It's a good thing we're not filming, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Now wait a minute, Bird. You go ahead and you tell what time we're on
Why am I doing it?
because it's like
Because this isn't an answer.
all right. Mars said so.
Say go.
All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, peeps, and join us Saturday evening at 9 o'clock for the Two-Faced News, where we talk about everything and anything.
That's right. Everything and anything, whether it's relevant or not, we're there.
Right. So join us at CJ Mars Saturday night.
That's right. And now that we're done, can we put our clothes back on?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you so much. Have you got the tea water going yet?
Yes, I do.
Me too. Okay, let's have a cup of tea. We're done.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Hello, everybody. This is Roger Belt, host of Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York, and my co-host is the one and only Cindy Jean-Pierre of CJ Mars Radio Network. And our guest tonight is Derek Tyler. Very interesting fellow indeed. And if you guys want to say hello real quick, we'll jump into this thing.
Good evening. It's nice to be here. Looks like we got a beautiful evening out here where I'm at in Seattle, and it looks like we should have a good show tonight.
I am doing just fine outside of a little bit of a buzzed up head, but you know you and I have been going through this, so okay. Anyway, as I advertised, Derek is going to explain to us all about aliens, abductions, both military and alien abductions, and the government's lovely cover-ups that they pull to try to cover all this up. Derek, kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's kind of an interesting story, the way that I got into this, because I never did really plan to make this, I guess, my life, which is what it's kind of turned out to be. I had my first sighting when I was a little kid, about 5 or 6 years old, and of course that got me interested in the subject, and I started studying it, but several things happened which were completely the result of either luck or being in the right place at the right time or being in the wrong place at the wrong time that really changed my life and enabled me to learn a lot more about it than I would have otherwise, and it's ended up putting me in the position I'm in today, quite by almost without planning to do it. The first one that occurred was in 1984. I just by pure dumb luck, I was in the right place at the right time to see a very large alien spacecraft. I could see it close and clear, and it was brightly lit up, and it was hovering just about 2 or 3 feet off the ground, right beside a constant care facility for retarded kids in my hometown. And it was just as it was starting to get dark in the summertime, and there was no question about what it was. I could see it so clearly, and it was big, and all the hair on my body stood on end for the only time in my life, and I knew that. Instantly, every cell in my body informed me that I was looking at something that was not from this world. And I watched it for 20 minutes. And, you know, when you see something like that, you don't want to take your eyes off of it. Because most sightings, of course, only last a few seconds or a couple minutes at the most. And you want to get all the viewing of it that you can. And this thing just didn't move. It stayed there. And so a few minutes went by, and I said, well, I was at my parents' house out in their yard. I ran inside to try to get some more witnesses. I said, Mom and Dad, look out your window real quick. There's a UFO. Well, they were sitting right beside their window. All they had to do was pull the curtain open, and they could have seen this thing. My dad said, don't care, saw him in the Navy. My mom said, if he doesn't care, I don't care. And so they wouldn't look. And so I said, well, I'm going to call the sheriff's office real quick. On my way back outside, I called the sheriff's office. I said, there's a UFO, and they hung up. And so I called the newspaper to see if they could get a photographer out there. Same thing, they hung up on me. So I just said, I said, well, at least they've got a camera. I can get some of the best pictures ever of this thing. They had a real nice Nikon camera with a Canon camera with a telephoto on it. I grabbed their camera and it didn't have a single frame of film in the house. So I ran back outside. There was nothing really else to do, and I continued to watch this thing. And after I had been there for 20 minutes, I was timing it. A pair of F-16s came in from the east, from Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane. The location that I was at, it takes them almost exactly 20 minutes to get there on full afterburner. So those jets were scrambled basically as soon as that UFO appeared. The Air Force Base in Spokane was aware of it, and they were scrambling planes instantly. And these planes approached it on afterburner. Then they slowed down. They tipped their noses upward at about a 45-degree angle so that they can fly at a slow speed without dropping out of the air. And they started buzzing this craft. It was a shaped like a magnifying glass. It was convex on both sides, and it had around the center of this craft, it had a belt of lights of different colors. They were white and green and yellow and red, and it'd have 3 or 4 lights the same color, and then it would change to a different color. And these lights were in a sequence changing color, so that it gave the appearance as if this belt of lights was actually spinning around the craft in a counterclockwise way. It looked like the whole belt was moving, but it was really just the lights changing color in sequence. And then all over the rest of this craft, it was silver, and it looked like flash bulbs were popping off at random spots all over the rest of it. And these planes, when they came in, they started buzzing this craft real close to it. Well, like within 3 or 4 feet of it, they were coming right down on top of it, one at a time. And then I could get a better sense of scale of this craft. And it was about twice, the circumference of this craft was about twice the length of the F-16s. And it was about 3 to 4 times as high as the F-16s counting the cockpit. So it was a very good sized craft, and it was so low to the ground, there was no question of what it was. I couldn't see underneath of it, but I could, because that part of the view was blocked, but I could see the whole rest of it. And these jets were clearly, they didn't fire on it, but they clearly considered it to be hostile and unwelcome. They were buzzing it very aggressively, and they continued to do that for 22 minutes. So the total time of this sighting was 42 minutes. I would have been 26. This happened in the summer of 1984, and I was watching it the whole time. My hair was on end the whole time, and this spacecraft, and there's nothing else it could have been. It completely appeared to ignore those fighters, just like they were insects. It wasn't the least bit concerned about them at all. Okay. And they continued to buzz it back and forth for 22 minutes, and then it gained a little bit of altitude. It didn't make any noise, and just enough altitude to pass over the top of a small hill behind it, and then it dropped behind this hill and out of sight with the fighters buzzing it the whole way.
Dita was asking if those flashes were the jets firing on the craft, or was the lights flashes part of the ship?
They were on the surface of the spacecraft, and they were flashing before the fighters ever got there. They were flashing the whole time that ship was there. It just appeared to be, they looked just like flash bulbs going off at random spots all over the body of the craft. And then this belt of lights was constant, spinning. It was circling around the center of the craft the whole time. Lights were changing sequence, and it looked like the belt was spinning, but it was just the lights. And it didn't have... I felt awestruck. It was mostly a feeling of just pure awestruck, because I knew that we didn't have anything like this, and I could even feel the hair on my arms stood down on end. And it's what they call, I'm sure you've heard of the terms high strangeness. And it's the only time I've experienced high strangeness. And if you want to know what it is, anyone out there that's listening, I'll tell you this. If you experience high strangeness, you'll know what it is. You'll know it, because there's no question about high strangeness when it happens. I felt amazed. I wasn't afraid of it because I was a good distance away, far enough that it wasn't going to be concerned with me. But I could see it so clearly, and I just remember being awestruck because this sighting changed my life because there's nothing else it could have been. I make mistakes like anyone else, but I'm not going to mistake the planet Venus for an alien spacecraft 3 feet off the ground. I'm not going to do that. And after that, I knew for sure several things. I knew that alien spacecraft are here, and nobody can tell me that they're not. I know that the government's aware of them. I know that they consider at least some of them to be unwelcome and intrusive and probably hostile. And I know that those alien spacecraft don't seem to be concerned about our fighter planes. And they were, I don't know what their purpose was for them hovering in that location. It was completely an unexpected place to see an alien spacecraft. I suspect that they went into that facility and brought some people out of it, but I couldn't see.
That's what I was going to say.
I couldn't see anything that was happening under the craft because this hospital's on top of a hill, and there, down the hill a ways there was some trees planted, and the top of the tree line blocked the view from underneath the craft, between the craft and the ground. So I couldn't see what came in or went out, but they were there for a reason, and I suspect that they took some kids out of that hospital.
What did you say that place was?
It was called the Yakima Valley School.
I know, but what was it for?
It's a constant care facility for people that are morbidly retarded.
Okay.
People that have like they're so spastic that they can't move, or they'll have water on the brain, or one of those things.
What better, easier prey to abduct than people who couldn't help themselves?
Oh yeah, they were absolutely defenseless. There was a staff on duty all the time there, but my mom had a cousin who worked there as a seamstress during the daytime, and I caught up with her a while later, and I said, what happened there that night? And she said she wasn't on duty at the time. She said, I don't know what happened. She said something happened, but nobody will talk about it at all.
That's just crazy, ain't it?
Yeah, but it changed my life, and it was purely a result of dumb luck.
Well,
you can't plan to see something like that. It just was there. And after that, there was no more arguing that according to Einstein, they can't get here between the stars. Hey, they're here. They got here somehow. How they got here, I can't explain, and I don't have to explain because they are here.
For years and years and years and years, since way back in the Mayan days.
Yes, I'm sure that they have been. But of course, it's the skeptics. It's a classic argument of theirs that, they couldn't get here. They can't pass the speed of light. The skeptics have I don't know if we have time to talk about that tonight, but the skeptics have a position which can be absolutely dismantled and destroyed and left in nothing but burning embers of what they used to think was science by anyone that wants to, because they set an impossible double standard that applies only to UFO witnesses. And I've tried this. I have a friend who's quite a prominent scientist, and I argued this. I had a public debate with him once about this, and I said, if you apply the same standards that you apply to UFO witnesses to yourself, you can't even prove that there are stars in the sky. I said, watch this. I said, prove to me that there are stars in the sky, but remember, all of your photographs will be considered to be fakes. All of your documents will be considered to be forgeries. All of your instrument readouts will be considered to be glitches, and your witnesses will be considered to be either lying or crazy. And I'm not going to go outside and look up to see if there are stars, just the same way you don't investigate UFOs. I said, you can't even prove that you're not a monkey that learned how to type by your own standards. So it's a double standard of evidence which allows them to reject any and all types of evidence. There's no type of evidence that will ever be good enough for them to accept.
Exactly.
And because as soon as they accept any type of evidence from any source, their entire position falls on its head, and we've got company. Well, they're rejecting evidence without cause, you see. They're assuming that all photographs are fakes, but there's no reason to think that they are fakes. They're assuming that all the documents were forged, but they're not showing that they're forged. So I said, if you apply those standards, prove the Hindenburg exploded. That film was a fake. The documents were forged. The witnesses were lying. You can't prove anything by your own standards.
What about all the documents that they blacked out and everything because there was stuff in there that they didn't want people to see when they had to turn them over?
Right, but the thing that science does is they give themselves permission to arbitrarily ignore any evidence that doesn't agree with their preconceived notion of what the truth must be.
Now, I want to ask you something. I was just recently watching, you remember Dark Skies?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I haven't watched television for 10 years, I should say.
The MJ-12 was, supposedly dealing with all the alien stuff, and the one guy was trying to uncover the cover-ups, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And MJ-12, of course, followed Blue Book, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, MJ-12 was the... Blue Book was an investigation. MJ-12 was supposedly a panel that was in charge of the information.
Yes, they were supposed to be dealing with what was going on and keeping it out of the public eye.
Yeah.
But that just made me wonder, how familiar with MJ-12 are you?
Well, I'm as familiar with it as anyone is, but of course, everything that has anything to do with the alien contact situation is surrounded by the biggest psychological warfare operation in the history of the world. And so it's very hard to rely on any information as being certain. If it comes from the government, it's absolutely guaranteed to not be true. Anything that NASA tells you about anything is a lie. NASA has never been about exploration of space. It's never been about performing science on behalf of the public, ever. NASA has always had the purpose of being a propaganda operation, which is designed to keep the public from knowing what is really happening out there. They've known about alien contact since the day they were formed. And anything that NASA tells you about space is not going to be true.
Well, they're going to cover it up, too.
Well, MUFON is generally considered to be compromised, and it has been for a long time. It's generally considered that it's been infiltrated at high levels by the intelligence agencies and compromised. Now, I know that there are some good people who work in MUFON, and I know some of them, and they're perfectly good people, but it doesn't take very many high-level officials to destroy your effectiveness.
And that basically is what she was reaching for.
Well, they can, you get someone in a position as a director of MUFON who's a disinformation agent. All he has to do is reject a couple sightings as fake that are real, and you've done a lot of damage. I don't know about that. I've never had much to do with MUFON myself. I've never turned in any of my sightings to them. I never plan to. I don't see any point in it. As I understand it, they've been infiltrated for at least 20 years. But all groups are. It's not just MUFON. All groups of any size or any importance absolutely will have disinformation agents assigned to infiltrate them. Even the discussion group that I run on Facebook, I guarantee you we've absolutely got moles in there. And there's no way to stop it. But you can stop them from causing trouble if you know that disinformation techniques. You can stop them from disrupting the discussion, but you can't stop them from monitoring the group. Because if you kick them out of the group, they'll just change their name and come back as someone else. It's just part of the territory. It's part of the field of this game is played on, and there's really no avoiding it. It's a very unfortunate thing, but there's, as you know, there's a lot of people working supposedly for full public disclosure, and that also is not what it appears to be at all. Full public disclosure is never, ever going to happen voluntarily from the government. If you think it is, you're kidding yourself, because for lots of reasons, but there are probably 20, 25 different reasons which could be given to prevent disclosure, and any one of them is sufficient all by itself to stop it from happening. And in addition, it seems to me that there are two major groups pushing for it, and it seems pretty clear to me that the people who are in charge of each of those groups are disinformation professionals themselves. Now, if you have a disinformation professional who's in charge of a group that's pushing for full public disclosure, you have to think about what that gives you as an intelligence agency. It gives you the ability to cause a lot of people to waste their time and energy working on a project that you already know is never going to work. You have a 0% chance of bringing about disclosure, but you can waste a lot of people's time and energy. You can get all these witnesses to come forward and talk about it, and then they'll be monitored and tracked for the rest of their life. And after your project fails, the highly public nature of it will serve to discourage anyone else from making that attempt for another 20 years.
And the whole purpose is to keep people from realizing what's right in front of their face.
Right. It makes it look like they're pushing for disclosure, but they're not. What they're doing is they're trying to get people to waste their time and energy on this rather than focusing on the questions that matter and the people that are causing the problems. Time and energy is all we have. And if they can get you to waste your time and energy by giving you false information or making you run down dead-end streets or volunteering your time for full public disclosure, then finding out that it doesn't happen, well, that's all it takes to make a disinformation campaign effective.
Okay, I think CJ's having some audio problems. Are you still with us, CJ? Oh, so they're not hearing you.
I wasn't looking in the chat room. I'll see if there's any questions here. I get, they do. I should tell the folks that I'm also an abductee, and they do this thing to us as abductees. They give us post-hypnotic suggestion, and it makes it very difficult to speak about these subjects. If you listen closely to me, you'll hear that I'm kind of almost panting right now. My chest is tightened up. It's very difficult to breathe. I'm pacing back and forth. It happens. It doesn't happen when I type and write about it, but when I speak about it, it happens every single time, and it's done to prevent us from discussing this stuff. I do it anyway, but it's just difficult.
Okay. Well, if you feel the need to withdraw from certain topics.
No, we'll talk about whatever you want, but I'm sure that that your listeners will be able to hear the tension and stress in my voice, which has steadily increased for about the last 5 minutes or so. My chest is so tight I can barely breathe, and this happens. This is not an accident. They do this to us on purpose. It keeps us from talking about them, and the closer I get to the truth, the more pronounced this becomes. So right now, I was speaking something that's very close to the truth because I can barely breathe.
Okay,
it's an interesting thing.
We're gonna get into a little bit more about the abduction stuff here right after the call letter break here in a few minutes. But now everybody out there listening and everything. This man has endured a whole lot under this kind of stuff, and it's understandable that he's having a hard time being able to talk about it, because I feel like... I
should tell you also that I've personally interviewed well over 2,500 abductees. I if there's someone who's interviewed more abductees than that, I don't know who it is. I've never heard of them.
You know, if any of you...
There might be someone out there that has, but I don't think so.
If any of you out there listening, or if you feel like you were an abductee or anything like that, you can call in, 716.
I can tell you whether you are or not. I'm very good at that.
Feel free to call in and tell us about your experience.
I've also had a couple of friends who I met in the mid-'90s. One of them became one of my best friends. He's an electronics engineer, and he was contracted by the Air Force and by NASA to, among other things, he helped reverse engineer technology found at crash sites. And my other friend, who I met through him, was high-ranking. I can't really give you his name or his correct position, but let's just say he was a very high-ranking officer at the Pentagon, and he worked in black ops. He had personally met multiple races of extraterrestrials through the course of his official duties. And both of these gentlemen were kind enough to set me down and brief me on the subject, military-style briefings on it, and they taught me many things that I couldn't have otherwise known, and it's another thing that I could never have planned. It just fell in my lap, and it changed everything.
Okay, caller, you're online.
Well, hello, it's Big Bird here.
Hey, BB, what's happening?
I'm doing fine, thanks. Yeah, I think I was abducted too, but I have absolutely no memory whatsoever.
Most people don't. They delete your memories.
I have a few weird, very weird experiences starting from childhood. Marks on me that I have no explanations for, as well as I woke up one morning and was totally paralyzed.
Yep.
I could see, I had a little skylight in my bedroom, and it looked like it was I can never think of the name of the bird. It's a huge bird like a stork, and they're black and white, like they've almost got a tuxedo on with a big long beak and the head. But it's tall, like as big as a stork and things like that height. But I could see what appeared to be this big bird staring at me through the skylight.
Let me tell you a little bit about how this works. People who are abductees very commonly have sleep paralysis, which you've mentioned.
Yes.
They very commonly have dreams of trying to run away from something that's behind them, but they can't see what it is, and their legs don't work right. They commonly have dreams of animals with large glowing eyes, such as wolves or owls, standing, or big birds like you were talking about, standing around their bed looking at them. Those are screen memories for aliens, which are really standing there. They put screen memories in your head so that if their deletion of your memories isn't exactly 100% effective, what you remember won't be them.
Hold your thoughts there for just a moment, please.
Okay.
We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio. I'm your host, Roger Belt. Our co-host is Cindy John Pierre, and our guest tonight is Derek Tyler, and we're in the process of talking about abductions right this moment. If you would continue, sir.
Well, there are some other. I think there's actually a list of like 50 possible indicators of abductions. Some of them are more important than others, but a couple of the other indicators which I've found to be very important, and this is something that doesn't happen to all abductees, but it happens to a lot of them. It happened to me. You'll notice that you have a tendency to burn out streetlights when you approach them. I've burned out as many as 3 streetlights on a single block before.
I've never done anything like that.
Have you ever burned out a digital watch or anything?
No, but I did tell Roger one evening, and he didn't believe me, and I told him to do an experiment on it. I had a nice hot shower one evening, had fresh bedding on my bed, climbed into bed. Now, the covers were completely neat around me, but yet when I woke up in the morning, I was at the bottom of the bed
Yeah, that's a
with
classic
my
sign.
head stitched out, and
Yep.
everything was tucked around me. And there's no way, because I have a queen size bed with king size sheets. And trust me, I tucked those blankets and sheets under. There's no way in hell that I could have stuck my head out of the middle of the bottom of the bed and still had both sides of those sheets and blankets tucked beautifully.
Do you have any sinus trouble?
Oh, I have terrible breathing issues.
Yeah, most of us do, because they put an implant high up in our nasal passage, and it makes it hard to breathe.
And I have my number one fear is eyes.
Eyes, and how do you feel about doctors?
Oh, I don't like doctors. I don't go unless it's totally, absolutely, positively necessary, and any type of needles or anything. I'm freaking even before they show me the needle. And I've been in offices because I'm a little bit psychic also. And I was in a doctor's office and seen this green tray there, and that green tray kept saying, "This is for you. They're going to operate on your shoulder today." And I'm telling that green tray, "No, they're not." And when I got into the doctor's office, sure enough, there was that green tray sitting there smiling at me, laughing, saying, "I told you."
I went to the doctor's office today for physical. It's the first time I've been to a doctor for at least 10 years. And most of us are the same way, because they perform surgery on us when they abduct us, and it makes us instinctively detest doctors and doctors' offices and medical equipment.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Have you ever had a miscarriage?
No. Well,
A lot of female abductees, not all of them, but very many of them, will have spontaneous miscarriages when they're 90 days pregnant. They'll go to sleep pregnant, they'll wake up in the morning and they're not pregnant anymore, and they don't know why. It's because the fetus has been removed. It can't survive outside the mother's womb for the first 90 days, but after 90 days, it can be removed and raised to term artificially, and that fetus will be a hybrid.
well, no, I've never had a miscarriage, but I did go the other route. And that I read up on just last week, as a matter of fact, on that point you just brought up. How they can take that 3-month fetus that somebody has aborted and grow it to term.
Yeah. You know, the deletion of memories, it's not a perfect science, and sometimes people will remember, especially if you wake up right after they bring you home, you'll retain memories. Most people, I don't think, ever will realize that they're abductees. It won't occur to them that it's even a possibility for the most part. But I had quite a few memories that I retained, and I've seen, by the way, the military is responsible for carrying out most of the abductions now, not aliens. Mm-hmm. The military has technology, and I've personally had it used on me, which is beyond science fiction, alien-based technology. And they have technology which will allow them to appear to be aliens. And they will abduct people for their own purposes, including making hybrids and other reasons. And they will appear to be aliens. And the idea is this will prevent them from ever getting caught. And if someone does happen to retain a memory, they'll think it was aliens. And when they tell people about it, nobody will believe them.
That's right. And
most of my abductions have been by the military, and I'm telling you, they have technology that I would have thought was impossible. Our military has the ability to travel through time. It's not a fantasy. It's not a theoretical possibility. They're doing it. They can travel forward. They can travel backward, and they've sent me both directions, and they do it easily. It's not hard for them. They do it for reasons that are so trivial that we would never consider using time travel for those things. Oh. They have the ability to literally remove your soul from your body and put it inside an electronic shield which will prevent it from being interfered with by any radiation or anything. They can literally, your soul, it turns out, is basically a collection of electromagnetic energy vibrations. They can remove it from your body, store it, possess your body with their own personality, and make use of it as they want, and give you back your soul to your body when they want to. It seems impossible. Out of the box is what this is all about. If you can't think out of the box, you can't understand what's going on. They do this, and our military is doing it all the time to abductees.
Tell them about the holograph thing.
The hologram.
Our military has the ability to produce holograms which are far more advanced than anything you're aware is possible.
I just watched videos on that also, on the holograms, and it really makes you open your eyes.
If you look, for instance, a great example of this is 9/11. Now, everybody thinks that an airplane hit the Pentagon and 2 planes hit the World Trade Center. It's not true. No planes hit any of those buildings.
That's
think
right.
they did? They did not hit. Those were holograms. But that second plane at the World Trade Center that they took the films of, they were filming a 3-dimensional moving hologram projected into the atmosphere, and those buildings were actually blown up by small nuclear devices. And it's actually easy to prove that. The Pentagon, there was no plane crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. That was a cruise missile. If you ever look at the hole that was punched in the Pentagon by the original strike, it's just above the ground. It's 16 feet wide. Well, we build those planes here in Seattle, and the nose of a 757 sits 40 feet above the ground. It's impossible to put a hole in a building right above the ground. It's impossible to fly one of those planes over that grass without ripping it to shreds from those gigantic engines. And it's impossible to crash a plane anywhere the size of a 757 without having big, huge 757 pieces laying all over the place. There wasn't a single piece of airplane debris in the wreckage anywhere at the World Trade Center, in Shanksville, or at the Pentagon. No planes crashed any of those places.
Yeah.
That was an inside job all the way.
All the way. And
if you think a 757 could penetrate the defenses of the United States Pentagon, you are fooling yourself. An entire air wing of a Russian carrier could not get close to the Pentagon, and they knew that 757 was inbound. No way. It didn't. There was no airplane. What they had was a helicopter, which had the military friend frequency transmitting, so it could get through any defenses they had, approach the Pentagon, fired a cruise missile, and left. And as a result, we got the wars that we wanted for reasons that you were never told. And
yes,
a lot of people don't realize that the biggest gold heist in history took place that day from a vault in the basement of one of those other towers. $300 and some billion of gold was stolen during the World Trade Center disaster.
Yeah.
That whole thing was Bush's way of getting people to support his war over there that he was doing.
Yep. Well, they had. If you follow the money, you can see exactly why they did those wars. The CIA, of course, is the biggest drug dealer in the world, and 90% of the world's opium supply comes from Afghanistan. When the Taliban took over Afghanistan, they banned the growing of opium, and the CIA's money supply dried up.
Why did they have soldiers guarding poppy fields?
Right, because that's the most profitable product in the history of the world.
Exactly, and who's getting the money from that?
Right, our intelligence agencies are doing it. And Iraq made the mistake of going off the petrodollar. The petrodollar, in case for people that don't know it, is an agreement that all the oil-producing companies of the world have to sell their oil only for dollars. And then they deposit those dollars, the massive billions of dollars that they get, in the United States banks which are members of the Federal Reserve banking system. And those banks...
Which is the one that controls the strings over everything we do.
It's the Rockefellers, it's J.D. Morgan, it's those people. And once they get those deposits, according to law, they can loan out at interest 10 times the amount of money that they have on deposits. So it's a huge scam and huge amounts of profit to those banks. And Saddam Hussein had dropped the petrodollar and started selling oil for Iraqi dinars. And as soon as he did that, he was doomed. They went over there, they conquered that government, they put them right back on the petrodollar and started those profits rolling again. The only people that gained from this were the people who own the defense industries and the bankers, and the CIA with their opium poppies. So Al-Qaeda didn't gain anything. Al-Qaeda didn't gain anything. They didn't have anything to do with this.
Okay, we have a question.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly right.
That's a real good question.
Exactly right.
Why were they flying out the bin Ladens from here before everything got shut down?
Why do we have $10 trillion of a military and we didn't have a single fighter covering our East Coast to shoot down any airplanes?
Good question. Good question.
There wasn't, if I'd have been the president that day, and if the official story had been true, if airliners had caused that damage and there'd been no fighter response, I would have had about the top 50 people in the military stripped to brink of buck private and sent home fired. And I would have charged them with treason if I could. Instead, everyone that was involved in that in the military got promoted.
That's weird, ain't it?
They spent $65 million investigating Bill Clinton's affair and $1 million investigating 9/11.
Right.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, it is.
And but the thing that got me on that subject was the technology that the military has available to it it's far more than you might think. People assume they're 30 or 40 years ahead of us. In some cases they are, but in some cases they're thousands of years ahead of us. And as my friend from the Pentagon said, do you really think that we're going to let powerful technologies like cloning or holograms, things like this, get out to the public until we're sure that we have a lead that nobody can catch? He goes, forget that. We would never let that happen. He says, the SETI project, he goes, that's not a privately funded group of civilians. He says, it's never been. We're not going to let them have that technology without us being the first person that they notify when they get signals. He goes, they have got signals from alien life, but you'll never hear about it.
SETI is just like NASA. Okay?
Right. It's
they're controlled.
a convenient place to hide funding.
Power.
Mm-hmm. And like you said with the MUFON, you report stuff to them, and the important stuff doesn't get out to the public.
Right.
And they send the Joe Bumble Johns to the basic ones and the ones where there's any type of evidence of any kind of importance. They certainly don't send the little guy. They send the Black Ops or the Men in Black or
the government supposedly shut SETI down, and entrepreneurs or whatever supposedly opened it back up and all that, but they were infiltrated from the get-go.
Right, the military runs SETI. It's not announced, but the military runs NASA. They run all those things because, and that's why, by the way, I don't know if people are aware of this or not. Apollo never went to the moon. There's a controversy as to whether Apollo landed on the moon. They did not land on the moon. No. They could not penetrate the Van Allen radiation belts around the Earth. It was all filmed on a studio set, and basically nobody can get past Earth's orbit without permission from extraterrestrials. That's why nobody's gone past Earth's orbit officially for over 40 years. It's also true that we have a secret space program. Oh, it's hard to breathe again. We have a colony on the moon. We have had for quite a while. We have a colony on Mars. But both of those bodies are and have been for thousands of years owned and controlled by the Greys. Our colonies are allowed there with permission as long as we don't interfere with them. But our solar system is not waiting for us to explore it. Our solar system is already owned.
So basically,
there will never be a manned mission that the public's aware of ever in our lifetimes to Mars or to the moon. And the reason is because
behind the public eye.
Yes, because they're already inhabited and they can't take a chance that people will notice. For instance, in Cydonia, there is the remains of an ancient Martian city. There used to be an intelligent race on Mars, natives, who destroyed themselves in a war millions of years ago. The remains of one of their giant cities, millions of years old, but completely in ruin, is sitting in Cydonia. And they can't take a chance that people will see that on a camera. So therefore, no public missions will ever go back there.
So when they shoot these pictures supposedly of the Martian surface,
you're not showing the Martian surface.
That.
There are actually trees on the surface of Mars. People just don't realize it. There are trees and there's open water on the surface of Mars. And as my friend from the Pentagon said, the shuttle program was never anything but a public relations propaganda ploy. It was to make people think we still had a space exploration program when we didn't. We haven't explored a single inch of space since the 1970s. And as the guy from the Pentagon mentioned, there's a lot of difference between space exploration and performing some kid's third grade science project in orbit. And that's what the shuttle was doing. It really had no purpose except propaganda.
So basically you're saying that they never took any satellites into space or any of that stuff they supposedly did?
Well, they took satellites into space, but for the price that they spent on that shuttle, it was totally not. They could have launched them with a rocket.
Right.
You know, I mean, it was basically a way to funnel huge amounts of billions of dollars. They would approve the funding for NASA, and they would take that money and funnel it right into the secret space budget. The amount of money that our government spends on alien-related projects is more than staggering. It's estimated to be around 1/4 the total gross national product of this country every year. It's by far and away the most expensive thing the human race has ever done. And we don't get hardly any benefits from it. We've gotten some, fiber optics and some other technologies, but most of the technologies and the advances are kept from us. They've had the cure for cancer for years.
Yes.
But they're holding it.
They've
They're
had
holding
the cure
it.
for cancer since the 70s.
Yes. They've been cloning humans since at least the 70s.
Oh, long before that, I believe it's been.
I've heard it could have been as early as the 30s to the 50s that they were already cloning humans. But they're never going to tell you that. But they're making super soldiers.
They've been cloning people since the beginning of time. So how?
Our government.
How could we possibly think that it's a new thing?
Right, and the human species itself it was not evolved. The story they tell you about human evolution, it's not only untrue, it's impossible. They tell you that a group of black folks wandered off of Africa 60,000 years ago. It's impossible. That's not how evolution works. You can't have black folks wandering off of Africa 60,000 years ago and today have Eskimos and Japanese and Samoans and Chinese and Swedes. That's not how evolution works. That would take tens of millions of years at least. What really happened is we were genetically engineered.
Mm-hmm.
We're an artificially created race. They used DNA from the native apes that were here and DNA from several types of alien races. That's why aliens look like us. No, we look like them because we are them.
That's what I've been saying for a long time. People just don't want to listen to that.
That's why there's no missing link. Because what they did was they had to tweak us 60-some times before they finally arrived at what we have today as modern man.
They were tweaking us back in the Mayan days.
Yes. If you notice the proto-humans, what happens is all of a sudden one day there's no such thing as a Neanderthal. The next day, there they are fully formed and living in tribal groups. There's no such thing as a Cro-Magnon. One day, nothing. The next day, there they are. There's no half species. They're fully formed and living in cities, and the Neanderthals suddenly disappear. 2.0 comes along, 1.0 is eliminated. There is no missing link. There are no half species.
And of course, you know all about the thing about the Anunnaki, supposedly.
Right. We were supposedly originally
But
The idea was to use us for mining slaves, to mine the gold.
Yes.
And the according to the aliens, the best of their knowledge is that the Anunnaki are no longer exist. They believe that they've gone extinct. They say that none of them have been able to make contact with the Anunnaki for many thousands of years now.
Did you guys happen to see the little clip? It was on Facebook last week about the kid touring around and he found a part of a rocket.
No, I didn't see that.
And it was a fair size chunk. And it came from a rocket that was supposedly sent up into space just recently. But yet this kid found a great big hunk of it. A full panel with the U.S. Air Force on it and all the other stuff.
Yeah, there's, by the way, I'd like to take the opportunity, if you don't mind. The most important thing I'll tell you tonight, and the most important advice I can ever give any of you is turn off your televisions. Turn them off and leave them off and never watch them again. Because people don't realize that the television was not invented as a communications or entertainment device. It was invented as a mass mind control brainwashing device. I haven't watched TV in over 10 years, and I don't miss it a bit. You think you'll miss it? You won't. The television tube flickers on and off many times every second, and is intentionally synchronized with the brainwave, the alpha rhythm of the human brain. And what that means in practical terms is that when you watch television, whether you know it or not, whether you want to be or not, you will be hypnotized within a matter of seconds. You can't help it. You can't avoid it. You will be hypnotized. And then it will start to issue you orders in the form of suggestions or advertisements or newsmen telling you what you should believe, who you should fear, who you should love, what you should wear and drive and vote for, what you should smoke, what you should drink, what you should do. Every single thing in this country, you are told what to do, and you are hypnotized, and you get up and you follow those commands. And that is why, almost 15 years later, nobody has even bothered to ask why there's no plane wreckage at the Pentagon. They've been brainwashed.
Do you know, I've had an almost possession on the internet also. So it's not just television.
Right, it's not just television, but television is far more dangerous.
Yes.
Because it's far more, I mean, some people live in front of their televisions, and they believe everything that comes out of that box.
Oh, yes, they do.
And that's why this country right now, this country appears to be an army of half-asleep zombies who are going through life with their heads to the ground, doing what they're told, asking no questions, as their country is being stolen out from under their noses. 15 years later, nobody even said, well, gee, where's the wings from that plane at the Pentagon? The hole's only 16 feet wide. The plane's 150 feet wide. Where's the wings? Where's the fuselage? Where's the passenger bodies and the luggage? Nobody even asked the question. And the media doesn't ask the question. The media is owned and controlled.
Of course they are.
If we don't get together as a group and take back our government, we are going to lose everything.
Well, I'm afraid that's already becoming a piece of ancient history.
Well, I'm afraid it is too, but I'm never going to give up hope. As long as I'm alive, I've got hope.
Right.
No,
Nobody
me neither. Do you know, I got into an argument.
Derek for president. Derek for president. This time you've got three choices. You've got a power-hungry bitch, you've got a lying retard, or me. Pick me. I can't do worse than any of them.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, this is true.
I'm going to have my vice president will be a monkey. He'll be in charge of the new department of making funny faces. He can't do worse than any of them.
Well, actually, the monkey might be smarter than most of them.
And you say people are being hoodwinked. I got into an argument online the other day with someone that was more concerned about a cigarette butt on the ground than he was about what's coming down at him from the skies.
Right. And in the meantime, while we're worried about cigarette butts on the ground, and if the gays are taking power, triple nuclear plant meltdown in Japan is killing the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, but they're worrying about a cigarette butt on the ground, or having to force your child to wear a helmet, or you wear a helmet.
What they've done is they've splintered us. It's divide and conquer, and they have got Americans bickering with each other. It's the gays against the straights. It's the atheists against the Christians. It's the country people against the city people. It's the educated against the uneducated, and the rich against the poor, and the whites against the brown people stealing all the jobs. By the time we get done fighting all those battles, we have no time and energy left to ask the questions that matter and to look at the people who are causing the real problem. They're dividing us and conquering us, and we have to get together as a people if we have any hopes to overcome this.
If you look at what's going on right now with the whole Jade Helm thing, you got to ask yourself, where the hell was I when all this shit started sneaking in on me? Pardon my language, y'all. But I get a little bit upset when I think about all that.
It's been happening since the 80s, but things that people believe to be true now, if they'd have said them 20 years ago, they'd have been laughed out of town as being idiots.
Exactly.
But now they believe it to be true.
Exactly. And anybody that believes that this Jade Helm thing is a military testing thing, you're full of crap.
We already have a military government, kids. You just don't realize it. We don't have a democracy. It doesn't matter who you vote for because the same companies own both parties.
Exactly.
It makes no difference who you vote for. When one of the parties doesn't care about you at all, the other one hates your guts. It's not a big difference.
I said it, yeah, martial law right now.
Yeah, but we've had a soft form of martial law and military government since the day they took out Kennedy.
And the whole Democrat-Republican thing is just two cheeks of the same butt.
That's right. And no other candidate has any chance to get elected because they've rigged the laws so that you can't even, do you think that I couldn't handle myself in a debate against those people? I'd send them home crying for their mommies. But I'll never get into debate with those people because I'm not allowed.
No, because they don't have the balls.
Right.
They don't have the balls to stand in front of your face and say, yep, this is what we're doing to you. How do you like us now?
They're going in right now. When they do this Jade Helm thing, it's going to cover all the southwestern states. And Texas and Oklahoma are considered hostile. First thing they're going to do is get them under control, and then they're going to start adding all the rest of the states in.
Yes, and why the UN in Texas?
That's what's happening.
And they're dropping chemtrails on your heads. And if you think about it, what professional military officer, what American president is ever going to approve of dropping chemtrails, which are poisonous and contain nanoviruses, on the heads of their own citizens? They're assaulting our own cities with them. Who's going to ever approve that? Nobody. That tells me that they're not in control.
That's right.
They've been in control. That's the problem. Government for the people, by the people, and all that stuff, that was a long time ago.
A long time ago. It doesn't matter who you vote for now because if you think about it, America has been so dumbed down that they thought it was a good idea to elect as president twice in a row someone who could barely read. And they wanted to elect Sarah Palin to be one heartbeat away from command of our nuclear forces. Sarah Palin, a direct quote that she said is, "If God doesn't want us to eat animals, then why did he make them out of meat?" That might be the dumbest words that any human's ever said. And people thought they were doing a smart thing by voting for her. That's what we've come to. Right. Television. Don't watch television.
Jenny Kevin's right. Killing essential sources like bees and vaccines are doing more harm than good. That's true.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we got to go to break. We're on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and co-host, Cindy John Pierre, and our guest is Derek Tyler. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back. Don't nobody go away.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Okay, everybody, we're back, and we're talking with Derek Tyler, and we're getting into a lot of very interesting different topics here, but it's all kind of basically wound into one if you look at it from that point of view. I wanted to ask you, Derek, since we're back in here now and we've got a chance to get a break in here. Tell us a little bit about the military abduction. Can you remember anything that was going on with that, or
Sure.
experiences you were having with that, or?
Sure. It's stressful. There's nothing good about any of it. None of it is designed to protect your interests. The military has a number of reasons that they abduct people. They're not the same reasons that the aliens had, although they do also create their own hybrids.
Okay, since you mentioned that, what exactly are the hybrids that they're creating?
Well, the reason that hybrids are being created is this is kind of a this will take a minute to explain this if that's okay. As it turns out, our DNA is not uncommon at all. Our DNA is found throughout the galaxy, very close to human DNA. It's basically everywhere. And many of the alien races share DNA with us within 3 or 4%. Nobody knows why this is. They don't know why it is either. But it's a fact. But of all the intelligent life that we know of, the DNA of humans is the simplest and dumbest and the least complex of all DNA. Sorry, go ahead.
How about, I'm throwing this out there as an explanation because I don't have anything better, but when all these different races, before they actually took place, our DNA, so to speak, maybe that this was the original source where everything sprouted from.
No. It's I'll tell you, this is not my opinion. This is an explanation that came directly from the Pentagon. So, believe it if you want to know what some of the truth. Believe this explanation. I can't tell you who told it to me, but take my word for it. I have no reason to lie, but I take this stuff serious as a heart attack. But the situation as it was explained to me is this: although planets with life are not uncommon, water worlds such as Earth are very uncommon. There are only about 1 in every 10,000 planets is a water world like Earth, which has a very diverse and extensive ecosystem. And Earth, as it just so happens, lies on a trade route which has been used for millions of years by a variety of alien civilizations. They were coming here anyway. They didn't have to find us. They were always coming here because we're right on a trade route. And possession of these blue water jewel worlds is something that all of the alien races desire. And we are in the middle of a battlefield right now. And they are fighting over who will get to control this world. And if you go into the ancient records, you'll see that many times those battles in the sky have been witnessed by our ancestors and written about.
Right.
And this is just part of the situation. It seems that according to alien medical technology, which is vastly superior to ours, all DNA has built within it a timer. It's a natural thing to all DNA of intelligent life. It has a timer that will someday go off. And when that timer goes off, how long it takes determines when your race will become extinct. What happens is, when that timer eventually goes off, as it will for humans in our time, your DNA begins to degrade and it becomes progressively more difficult to reproduce naturally. And eventually it becomes impossible. And so you have to resort to cloning. And eventually, even cloning becomes impossible. Every time that you create a new generation of clones, you lose a tiny bit of genetic information because the process isn't 100% efficient. And eventually, you cannot reproduce even by cloning, and your race will become extinct. And so what has happened is, these races that we are dealing with are not original races. There's 2 of them that are, but we're aware of 60-some races now. They're not original races. They have already hybridized. The only way to save your race is to find a way to hybridize with another intelligent race before you go extinct. Then you reset your DNA timer to 0 because you have a new species. And these races that we are dealing with are reaching the end of their lives. They're in the process of slowly becoming extinct, and they know it. And humans, on the other hand, are the youngest, newest kids on the block. We are the young, warlike, strong DNA which has not yet begun to degrade. We are also the simplest DNA as far as structure goes, which means that it's the easiest for them to work with and to recombine with their own. We have fewer strands of DNA. We have much simpler DNA, and it's easier to hybridize with their own. And so what they are doing is they all want, none of them, of course, want to die out. They all want their part of their race to be sent into the future. And the only way they can do that is by creating hybrids. We are also the only race which doesn't have the technology to prevent them from doing it. We can't stop them. And what they're fighting about is whose DNA will be sent into the future by us. And they are creating hybrids. They are releasing them into the general population. They look just like us. Many of these hybrids, you can't tell the difference between them and a human, and the hybrid themselves will not realize they are a hybrid. But they will be half alien genetics. They send them into the population. They've been doing this for thousands of years, making these things, right? And they work beside us. They live beside us. They marry us. They reproduce, and they send the alien genetics into another generation. Eventually, it will spread across this whole planet. And we will be silently colonized and conquered without even realizing there's a war going on. All you need is time and enough hybrids to send into the population, and you can take this planet without firing a shot. That's how a truly advanced civilization beats you without warfare, genetic warfare. And that's another reason that public disclosure will never happen. The first thing that they have to say, if they go to full public disclosure, is, we spent $10 trillion on the military and we don't control our own airspace and we can't defend ourselves from aliens. Then they have to say, we signed an illegal treaty with the wrong side. We're abducting you. We're conducting experiments on you. We're committing capital crimes against you. And we're basically controlled by aliens. Okay. I don't know if you guys have seen that picture of the alien head on the dollar bill, but you should check it out if you haven't, because we have a picture of an alien gray on our dollar bill. It didn't get there by accident.
Since you brought up the treaty thing, that was one of the things I was going to ask you about. Kind of explain to everybody about the treaty thing.
Okay, well, this is how it was told to me. Back in the 50s, we had a race of aliens offer to open diplomatic relations with us. They offered us technology which would help us solve our problems, such as pollution, overpopulation, free energy, etc. These were the race known as the Andromedans. And they had a condition attached to their help. The condition was that before they would help us, we had to eliminate all nuclear weapons from our world. Now, this was a no-go. It was a no-starter from the point of view of the military. Eisenhower was the president. They rejected this because they weren't sure that the Andromedans were friendly, and they felt that nuclear weapons might be the only thing, if it came to war, the only thing we had that might be useful against them. At some point during this meeting with the Andromedan ambassador, a silent alarm was accidentally triggered. Guards rushed into the room, assuming the president was in danger. They shot the Andromedan ambassador in the chest, killed him immediately. They've never trusted us since that day, and according to my sources in the military, it's hoped that with good behavior, we'll be able to regain their trust within 150 years or so. The next thing that happened was a meeting was arranged at Muroc Air Force Base in California, which is now Edwards Air Force Base, with representatives from the Type 1 Greys. Those are the Greys that were found at the Roswell crash. They did offer us military technology, but basically the terms of the treaty were like this. We had to agree to let them continue to fly over our country whenever they wanted, do what they wanted, abduct a certain number of our people, perform experiments on them, surgeries on them. We had to provide them with underground and underwater bases at our expense, and in return, they would occasionally provide us with technology. They would agree to stay out of our politics, and we were basically signing a surrender document because we couldn't stop them from doing what they wanted. We traded away our citizens for technology, and both sides were planning on breaking this treaty before it was even signed. We were going to try to take their tech and turn it into a weapon that we could use against them. They were planning all along on abducting as many people as they wanted, regardless of how many we said that they could abduct. And they abducted way more than they were supposed to. And they have been manipulating our politics the whole time. No president is allowed on the base of Area 51. You'll never see a president go to Area 51. Well, any new president, that's the first place he's going to want to go, isn't it? He's going to say, fire at my plane, we're going to Nevada. No. He's not going to Nevada. He's not allowed to go on Area 51, and if he tries to go on Area 51, they will kill him to keep him out. That's a fact. Now, who can give that order? I don't know, but somebody did, because you've never seen a president go to Area 51, and you never will. And you'll never see a president since Eisenhower, which is allowed to meet a representative of any alien race. The reason for that is because many of them are telepaths. They can read your mind whether you want them to or not. If we've got any plans against the aliens, they would pick it right out of his mind and know it as soon as they met the president. So the president is not fully informed about the situation. He's never met an alien. He never will meet an alien. That's part of the problem. But we basically signed a surrender document. We gave them everything they wanted, and they fed us a few little pieces of technology, some of which didn't even work, none of which is going to be capable of beating them. And it's also a fact, which we didn't realize at the time, this treaty, of course, was illegal because Congress was not advised, but we've been bound by it ever since.
Well, it don't make logical sense that they're not going to give us enough technology to use it against them.
Right. We had nothing to lose by trying because we couldn't stop them anyway. So we figured, let's try to get a little technology out of the deal. You know, we have no way to. These are civilizations which have had interstellar travel since before we were monkeys. Okay, we can't fight them in a war. That's ridiculous. The only thing it takes to wipe out humanity completely is to drop a rock on our heads from outer space, and they've got way better weapons than that. You know. So,
who do you think is taking more of the people that are disappearing? Our government?
Well, this is the people that are disappearing. I'm sure you heard about the livestock mutilations back in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
It's not really known to the general public, and they cover it up very well, that humans have also been found mutilated in the same fashion.
Yes.
They've had their eyes cut out, their sexual organs, their tongues, they've been drained of blood, and it's been done from the condition of the bodies. It's very clear that it's been done while they were alive and conscious. The reason is this. There are at least 4 alien races, 3 of them that we're directly concerned with, which consume humans. Now, the classic ETs, the little grays with the big, dark, wraparound eyes, they have no digestive tract whatsoever. They do not have an esophagus, a stomach, nothing. So they are a created artificial race. They're not a naturally occurring race. They were created by the reptilians. They are cyborgs. They have a hive mind. They're fully telepathic. They must intake and excrete nutrition through the pores of their skin because they have no digestive system. Okay? They do this in the form of a liquid slurry. The slurry is composed of hydrogen peroxide, human or cattle blood, and various organ secretions from our bodies. And they are using humans that they kidnap to do this with. And they're the least of the problems. The type 1 greys, which are the Roswell type greys, a lot of people don't realize that the Roswell crash, one of the things they found in the wreckage was vats full of human body parts. They consume humans as well, and they are not the biggest problem. The reptilians are. They get a high, and they've become addicted to it from eating human flesh, which has been laced with high levels of adrenaline. And so what they do is they prefer kidnapping children and babies, and they've even got our Delta Force doing it sometimes and delivering it to them. And they will terrorize these kids to get them as scared as possible. Sometimes they'll cut off their hands or whatever to get them mortally terrified so that their bodies are producing as much adrenaline as possible. And then they will consume them alive. They don't eat anything that's dead. They eat them alive. That's a race known as the Draco reptilians. They are the royalty caste of the reptilians. All reptilians don't do this, but the royalty does. And they live in bases miles under the ground here. And we have lost hundreds, literally hundreds of thousands of people who've simply vanished and never been seen again over the last several decades. Where do you hide hundreds of thousands of people? You don't hide them. They'd never come back. But there's enough people to fill up the whole city of Seattle that have just vanished. And this is a reason that full public disclosure is never going to happen, because they're going to have to, part of it would involve saying, we signed a treaty agreement, we've been working together with a race of basically of interdimensional, hostile, invasive, intrusive, parasitical, extremely advanced, IQ 200, baby-eating reptilian monsters from outer space, and they're kidnapping your children and having them for dinner. Thank you very much, America. There's your full public disclosure. You wanted it, you got it. That's why it's never going to happen.
Okay.
Are we scared yet, kids? We should be.
Exactly. And, that's what I was saying before we even started this show. People out there, if you're not paying attention, you need to pay attention, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And if you ask me, it has a lot to do with how the situation is right now.
I want to be clear about something, too. I don't guess about this stuff. I detest guessing. I detest disinformation. I would rather say nothing than to say something that I think might have a chance of being wrong. I don't guess about this stuff. I've spent my entire life learning about it. And when I tell you something is true, it's because I know it's true. I don't guess about it because I don't want to lead anyone astray. So it's the more I learn about this, the scarier it gets. The reptilians have an average IQ of 200. They speak every language that we're aware of, including Greek, Latin, Basque, Swahili, fluently, including their own language. To a race of beings which has an average IQ of 200, Stephen Hawking would be considered mentally retarded. Think about that. And they've had technology for interstellar travel since before we were monkeys. You can't imagine what they're capable of.
I'm sorry,
That's for sure.
It's not only the truth about aliens is not only stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we have the ability to imagine. 100 years ago, they could not. They were going to school on horses and buggies. Today, we're sending probes to the stars. That's 100 years. Imagine 100 million years. You can't imagine it.
You remember the sci-fi movie. I think it's called They.
Called what?
They.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's one of my favorite sci-fi.
The guy
sci-fi
had
flicks.
sunglasses, and he could.
Oh, it's called They Live.
Yeah, They Live.
Roddy Piper.
Where he could put on those glasses and see what they really look like.
Well, that's one of the most truthful sci-fi movies ever built.
Now,
between that and V and the X-Files first movie, those movies have so much truth in them. It's unbelievable.
Oh, V was back, in the 80s?
Yep.
Yeah, and I remember watching that when it came out, too.
Yep.
Yeah, I was in Alberta at the time watching that faithfully.
Yeah, that was quite something, wasn't it? And They Live was that was a low budget science fiction movie that starred a guy that wasn't even an actor. And it was fantastic.
It was an exceptional series. It really made you open your eyes and look around.
Do they actually have something like that where they can see what they look like?
Yeah, well, the matrix that was described in these movies is real. The things nothing that we were taught in school is basically true. Our history is a lie. Anthropology is a lie. They work with a whole nother version of physics at Area 51 than we have. And it doesn't have anything to do with our physics because they've been given alien physics. The aliens are, the reptilians and the greys are capable, they're interdimensional creatures. They are capable of warping between our dimension and another parallel dimension, which exists on top of ours like a blanket laying on top of a blanket. They can be standing in the room with you, and you won't know they're there unless they choose to make themselves known to you. It's a very scary thing.
What do you think of the war in Dulce between the aliens and the army fellows?
I think anyone that attacks aliens is a fool, because you might have to do it, but you're not going to win.
Yeah, but they weren't expecting to.
I think that really happened. I've heard that. Now, I don't have any special inside information on this. I did ask my best connection about Dulce Base, and he was a very high-ranking officer. He was in a very good position to know everything that happened at Dulce Base, and it's the only subject that he refused to discuss with me. He said I don't have any information about Dulce Base, and if I did, I would not be able to divulge it to you. That is off limits. But I do believe that Dulce Base war occurred, and I'm told that we are already at war, a shooting war against several of these alien races. And that's another reason that full public disclosure can't happen, because they don't kill members of the public to prevent them from knowing about space brothers that are here to help us. They kill members of the public to prevent them knowing a truth that is so terrifying that they couldn't handle the truth.
Somebody was asking there, and Jenny Kevin was asking, what do you know about the moon? She obviously missed when you were talking about that earlier.
Well, the moon is very likely an artificial object, first of all. It's almost impossible to explain the moon as a natural object. For example, the story that we are told about the origin of the moon is that a giant planetary-sized meteor crashed into the Earth at some point and knocked a big chunk of the planet off, which eventually became the moon. Okay. If that happened, why is the Earth round and why is the moon round? It's impossible.
And why does the Earth not have a big jagged hole cut out?
We'd have a big jagged hole that's shaped like a piece of pie stuck out of this Earth, and the moon would be that piece of pie.
Exactly. Thank you.
And if those astronauts would have been jumping around on the moon in lunar gravity, they'd have launched themselves into orbit. Instead, they only went 2 feet off the ground because they were in Earth gravity, and they slowed it down to half speed so it looked like they were in light gravity.
Okay, Stardust was asking in the chat room, are reptilians the most dominant extraterrestrial race?
They appear to be. They are the most technologically advanced race known. Nobody can outthink them. They're the most intelligent race known. Nobody can beat them in terms of technology. They are physically the most dominant race known. They are 7 to 9 feet tall. 350 pounds, considered to be 15 times stronger than human, and equipped with claws. And they have a warrior caste, which can basically go without eating for 2 months at a time while it lays in the ground waiting for you to come along. They're impossible to fight physically successfully. They are a very ancient race. They're a negative. They're very arrogant. One of my friends has met reptilians, and he's met them as part of his military duties. And he said he didn't like them. He said they're extremely arrogant. He said when I felt them, he said when I met them, I felt like a chimpanzee surrounded by geniuses.
Okay, hold that thought. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and your co-host, Cindy John Pierre. Our guest tonight is Derek Tyler, and we are in the middle of discussing reptilians. Please carry on, sir.
Well, it's not all bad news. There are friendly aliens as well. There are aliens which like us just fine. There are aliens which would like to help us. But the aliens which
sounds like a Klingon.
Yeah, well, the problem is, as I see it, first of all, they probably lack the power to outpower the reptilians. Most likely, if they took actions to step in and change our situation forcefully, they would endanger their own species and maybe their own home world. They're not, yes, those friendly races do exist, but you cannot find evidence of a single thing ever that they've done to help us. Sending 14-year-olds into chat rooms claiming to be a Pleiadian ambassador is not help from an extraterrestrial species. It's a pathetic little guy that needs attention and is impersonating aliens. If they can get here from another star system, they don't need trolls in chat rooms to spread their message.
True.
And you can't find a single instance of anything they've done that's actually helped us in a way that we can notice.
What about
I think that the alien races which have power and control and influence here, at least, by far, are the Greys and the Reptilians. And part of that is because we have invited them in. We work with them. We've built bases underwater and underground that are jointly occupied. And some people say that there's a non-interference policy enforced among aliens. Well, there is no non-interference policy if you invite them in. And also, a non-interference policy does you no good if you go by the terms of it and your enemy doesn't. So they're not helping us for some reason. Maybe they will, but if they're going to do so, they better get themselves into gear, because I have this crazy theory, it's just a crazy theory of mine, but I'm pretty sure that it's probably right. It goes like this: friends do not stand idly by while their friends' children are getting eaten by reptilians. My best friends wouldn't do that, and my worst enemies wouldn't do that. Friends do not come down. Some people think all aliens are friendly. Those people are misguided, and they're poorly informed. Friends do not kidnap you out of your bedroom in the middle of the night and perform surgery on you. Those are capital crimes, not acts of a friend.
I asked you again, you probably didn't hear me a while ago, what about the Pleiadians?
Well, they are very much human-like in appearance. They are, generally speaking, they're felt to be a friendly type of a race. Sometimes they have been seen working with the Greys, but it's believed that those are the result of prisoners or clones from the other side. But they are not doing anything. They're talking a big show. Well, all these messages that you hear from them, we're going to lead you into the light. It's a worldwide consciousness shift. I could write that. I don't need a star visitor to help me write that. I could write that in 2 hours and do a better job than they did on it. They're not doing anything. And it seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, this is just speculation. I said I don't guess, but I'm going to guess now. My speculation is that they are scared, that they either don't have the power to help us, in which case they're not going to do us any good, or they're not willing to help us, in which case they're not really very much friends of ours. I think that they are probably, when it comes right down to it, they're unwilling to invest any risk and any resources in helping us, and they could very well be cowards. That's going to be an unpopular opinion among a lot of people. I can already see the hate mail coming in. Hit me, folks. I can take it.
Well, anyways, see, and that's just the thing, though. You know, you hear so much about, I've heard a lot about Pleiadians are supposed to be our saviors, so to speak.
They're not saving anyone.
You know, and
they're not doing anything. There's three main groups of aliens. There's the negative aliens. There's the aliens which are aligned against them, and there are the aliens which are non-interventionists, which also are not helping us.
Okay, Snooky Bumble's in the chat room, and you got to wonder who that is.
Reveal yourself.
Yes.
Are you a Pleiadian ambassador?
Snooky Bumble.
If you are a Pleiadian ambassador, stop by my house. We'll have a beer and we'll talk this over.
Right.
If I'm wrong, you'll have a chance to show me. If you're gray, get your face off our money. That's pissing me off.
So do you believe...
Hold your peace.
Do you believe there is any alien race that is working for the betterment of us?
I think there are some which are trying to help us, but the amount of help, it seems to me, and this is just my opinion, the amount of help that they're providing is more than outweighed by the amount of damage which is being done by the other side. And the reason I say that is because we can look around and see that this world is not moving toward a consciousness shift. It's no more enlightened than it was 5,000 years ago. We are not advancing. We are, in fact, losing our rights and moving toward a fascist theocracy. And that is not a good sign that we're being helped by benevolent aliens. Well,
now, I got to ask this question because it kind of all fits when you think about it. This whole New World Order thing. Is that possibly alien produced?
It is. This is another thing it's hard to get your head around.
Exactly.
One of the big problems with this field of research is the big picture is really, really big, and it's too big for most people to ever see. And when you step back and you try to get a look at the big picture, everything kind of suddenly falls into place and the puzzle pieces fit. The New World Order, more specifically the Illuminati, are broken into groups themselves. One group is in control and has been always. And as I'm sure you've heard, that group is a bloodline. It's a certain number of bloodlines which are guarded very carefully. European royalty, basically. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Stuarts, all the royal houses of Europe are members of this bloodline. It is a reptilian hybrid bloodline. If you ever want to see some shocking and very, very unexpected news, go onto YouTube and look up an interview that David Icke did with a lady called Arizona Wilder. She was a former employee of the House of Windsor, and she describes their ceremonies where they drink human blood and practice satanic magic with other royalty, and she's not kidding. The first time you hear it, you'll go, this can't be real. Believe it, it's real. And the people that are running these groups are alien hybrids.
And I watched a video about a month ago with Prince Philip, or whatever the Queen's husband is.
Oh man, he even looks like a lizard, doesn't he?
And he had a black eye, and someone had said that they had been eating, and the queen mom, she might be tiny, but when she turns into a reptilian, she's
Yes,
9 or 10 feet tall.
she's one
And
of the
they
most
claim
powerful
that
of
they
all
had
of them.
had a free for all, and he got his black eye from that.
Wow, I hadn't heard that, but I don't doubt that it's possible. I mean, they are fierce, and they can. I don't know. I don't understand how it's done, but they have the ability somehow to either shapeshift or to make us believe that they have shapeshifted. They have the ability to either shapeshift between reptilian and human, or they have the ability to make us see them as humans sometimes.
Hmm. Well,
Well,
apparently it was a feeding frenzy.
Yes, that's what Arizona Wilder said. When they
He's
start
just
eating, when they
like,
start getting this blood, and they sacrifice humans for it, they go into a feeding frenzy. They start eating these kids alive, and they're rushing in, crowding each other around, and pushing royalty out of the way. The highest-ranking reptilians go in first, and it's just as you said. It's
And
so unexpected and out of the box that you almost can't get your head around it.
plus, I also watched a video where they were claiming that the induced birth of the baby is a hybrid. And say if Kate has another one, as you notice, they're talking about her going in and having a C-section and having it induced. And they
Kate's
say
kids don't
that,
matter to them because Diana was the one that they wanted to bear the inheritors to the throne. Those British princes they have reptilian DNA in them. That was Diana's purpose, and when she'd served her purpose, she was killed.
that's right. That's right. She was the
Yeah,
sacrifice.
you should join our discussion group, ma'am, because we got some jamming discussions going about this stuff. And another month or so, I'm going to have quite an interesting book coming out called Alien Contact: The Difficult Truth, and it's going to shock and it's going to spin heads around all over the place because it's the result of my entire lifetime of research, and I'm not pulling any punches, and I'm not trying to soften the blows in any way. So
Well, please don't. We all need a reality check.
it's our only chance. I mean, pretending that all aliens are here to help us is foolish. All the people on my block aren't here to help me, man. Don't tell me all the aliens in the galaxy are here to help me.
right.
All you have to do is meet one species of cannibalistic slavers, and it ruins your whole species' day.
That's right.
And the dumbest thing, one thing an intelligent race of beings would never, ever, ever do is broadcast television and radio signals in all directions from their only home planet into space in all directions for anyone who wants to receive them to find them, because you've just given away the location of your only home to people who are stronger than you. And you only have to meet one of them that's mean. We would protect the location of our home until we knew who was out there, but instead we're sending signals out in all directions at all times. Anybody that's out there can find us. We're lit up like a big red flag.
Look like a Christmas tree.
And speaking of that, what do you think of the the things they find in farmers' fields and things like that?
Well, I don't know what to think of those, but I suspect that those are messages from friendly aliens that are trying to give us messages that our government is not allowing us to have the news of.
So
I mean, it's impossible. They're certainly not made by three guys with boards on their feet. That's silly. Some of them
That's
can
right.
be made that way, but the
So-
real ones can't be made that way.
Well, some of the
So-
really intricate ones, there's no way they could have done that with a board and a rope.
No.
So
The
would
stalks
you
of
say-
wheat are bent at a 90-degree angle and unbroken and still alive in a real crop circle. You can't
Would
do that
you
with boards
say
on your
that
feet.
the crop circles, the aliens or whatever that are leaving these crop circles with important information for us, do you think they're there for our betterment?
I would guess that they are there for a betterment. They don't seem to be doing us any harm. The trouble that I have is I can't decode those messages. You know, I mean, a lot of the messages are, they are mathematical numbers sets, like the Mandelbrot set.
And what do you think of Billy Myers?
Well, that's a tough question. I tend to think that he is a legitimate contactee, but he's also been known he's faked at least some of those photographs. I believe that that's been proven. I don't know why he would do that, but
Okay.
I don't think he's smart enough to invent that whole story by himself.
Maybe he was compromised and he was made to fake some of that stuff so that people wouldn't believe what he actually was saying.
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, there are people all the time who are compromised. If you look at someone like Dr. Greer, a few years ago, he was fine. His information was fine. But then suddenly one day, it wasn't. And suddenly one day, he thinks all aliens are our friends. And he's been around too long and he's too smart to know. He has to know that that's not true. And I don't know have you ever watched any of those clips that supposedly show reptilians morphing into humans or humans starting to morph back to reptilian form?
Yes.
What do you think of those?
Well, I watched the one with the Obama speech that he was giving. And that person they kept homing in on, or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
was definitely not of human DNA.
Well, look up sometime on YouTube clips that show supposedly morphing.
Newscasters.
Keanu Reeves is one of them. Look up one that shows Keanu Reeves, and look up one of them that shows Stephen Greer. If I didn't know what to make of those clips, I didn't know if they were real or not. When I watched those, I thought, oh my God, it has to be real.
And they also think that what's his name, the ex-Marine / governor, that he is also compromised. Because when he came out and claimed he was coming to look for UFOs and aliens and find out the truth, the day he came out with Illuminati stuff all over his jacket.
Yep. Well, they've got a lot of people in a lot of places. They've got so much power and control that I don't know how you fight them. I mean, the only way to fight them is we have to work as a group. If we get together as a group, there's only a few of them and there's a lot of us. They couldn't stop us. But if they can keep us fractured, they're just going to pick away until they can take everything. They're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they want you worrying about all the stupid little things in the world and fighting over whether this guy called you a nigger or a Chinaman.
We're worried about whether the gays are taking over, and while we're concentrating on that, we don't notice that there's no airplane wreckage at any of the World Trade Center sites or the Pentagon. Well, and so the people that engineered that, they get away with stealing trillions of our dollars and restricting our freedoms, and we're still bickering about whether the atheists are better than the Christians. And it's a question that doesn't matter. They get us fighting about things that make no difference, so we don't concentrate on the things that do make a difference.
I think the whole idea is the New World Order thing is to get everybody under one thing, because that way they can control us easier.
Right. And they're working towards that. The North American Federation is a combination of Mexico, U.S., and Canada. There's going to be an African Federation, a European Union. They're just breaking it into, they're combining it into several large pieces, and they're going to plan on putting it together someday. But, you know, it's none of it's to our advantage, because if you look at it from the point of view of an alien, once they have their crossbreed established and they've got their hybrids controlling everything that matters here, the food, the military, the communications, the wealth, the water, everything that matters, they have no reason to care what happens to the original inhabitants of this planet. We can do what they say, or we can starve to death. They have no reason to care which of those things happen. Right?
Right.
It's scary. It's a scary subject. That's why in my discussion group I'm so militant against disinformation, and I don't let people post the alien space brothers stuff, because I don't have time for that, man. This is serious stuff, and we can't afford to be distracted by things like that.
Well, and the whole thing with all the racial rioting and all this stuff going on. I think it's all part of the big plan. I mean,
Sure.
you know,
They get you mad at the Mexicans. So think how mad you'd be at the reptilians. Think how much Alabama would hate reptilians, man. Disclosure's never going to happen.
The world, never mind just Alabama.
Right. It's a scary thing, and I don't know. I don't have the answer. I barely have learned just the right questions. It's taken me a lifetime to do that. But one of the most effective disinformation techniques of all is to keep people stuck asking the wrong questions. They keep people stuck for a whole lifetime asking whether or not aliens are here. It's an argument that can't be won or lost. It goes on forever, and they never get around to asking the right questions.
That's right. Instead of asking, are they here? Because we already know they are.
Right. You have to ask why they are here, how long they've been here, and what they want from us, and what kind of power they hold over us.
Okay, here's another one. What do you think of a Bigfoot being interdimensional beings? And
disinformation. Anytime I hear someone say Bigfoot's an interdimensional alien or any kind of alien, I know I'm listening to a disinformation agent.
That's right.
There's never been any evidence whatsoever that Bigfoot has anything to do with any flying saucer or alien, and the people that say he does are lying.
Well, I've heard people saying that they've claimed to see Bigfoot one minute and then he completely disappears into thin air the next. Well, what people don't understand is we don't live where they do. They've got that whole territory mapped out. They can disappear in a second.
Well, I don't know what Bigfoot is, but I know that he's not an alien creature.
No,
and I hope for
I don't
his own
think
sake
so.
that they never find him, because I like a world with some mystery. I hope they never find Bigfoot or Nessie. I like mysteries like that, and if they ever find him, the next thing that'll happen is people are going to hunt him, and there won't be any left.
What about Mothman and the Jersey Devil?
Well, those probably existed. I think Mothman could have possibly been a Draco reptilian. The Jersey Devil, I don't have an answer for that. It's one of the most interesting mysteries I know of, but an earthly originated creature could not have accomplished that. I don't know who did, but it certainly wasn't a raccoon or a rabbit.
That's true. That Mothman and stuff really baffled me also, because it only seemed to be in one area. Oh, and another one. Over in Europe, there, that great big, I don't know whether you would call it a spider.
I don't know what to think about that. It almost looks like it's a hoax, doesn't it?
Well, you figure between balcony to balcony, that's 10 feet.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you another real interesting case that you can look up on your own. It's called the Varginha incident. It happened in Brazil. It's VRGINHA. It's a region of Brazil which had in the late 90s, an alien spacecraft crashed there that made Roswell look like small potatoes. And there were several survivors. They caught 2 or 3 of them in nets, the locals. It was a jungle area with only small villages. They were traveling in the fastest spacecraft ever picked up on radar, and they were completely docile. They didn't make any threatening motions. They were crying and screaming for help. They were not in any way threatening. And one of them was shot in the chest and killed by the local militia. Several escaped into the jungle. They took the dead one's body to a secure medical area in the basement of the University of the Americas in Panama, in the medical building. And they had another one, which they caught alive. They tried to remove its spacesuit, but they couldn't get it off. So they decided to cut it off with like an arc welder or something. They didn't realize that the spacesuit was actually grown into the body itself. It was biological technology, which it was grown into the body, and it could not ever be removed. And when they tried to cut it off, they killed him. Whenever you hear about biological machines the size of a molecule, which can reproduce themselves, nanotechnology, That is technology which was found at that crash site. And the United States committed acts of war against Brazil in order to control that crash site. We sent our special ops troops in, and we were firing on their troops. We did anything it took in order to gain control of that crash site, and then we paid them off several $billion later to forget about it.
And what do you think of the video that was just posted a couple of months ago about the Army fellas fighting the big alien, whatever it was, in the desert?
Oh, I don't know what to think of that. I've watched it. I think first, I think, what would a big blob like that be doing in the desert? You know, what's he doing all by himself in a desert with no water? Doesn't seem very likely. But at the same time, I don't know. My friend from the Pentagon described an alien. He described several alien races to me, which I'd never heard of before or since anywhere else. And one of them was a race of blobs. One of them was an aquatic race, which he thinks of as giant intelligent squid, which can't live in our atmosphere or our oceans, so they have no interest in it. But it makes me think that it's possible. But on the other hand, it's awful easy to make fakes, and a lot of people do it just for fun, and they do a lot of damage to our business, because one fake makes 1,000 legitimate witnesses look bad.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. Derek, if you want to get your links out to everybody. And
thank you for having me on your show. It's been very stressful but very enjoyable. I run a discussion group on Facebook. It's called UFOs and Alien Contact. We're serious. We've got almost all of the top people in the business are members of our group. We're not going to let you post any spam or anything like that. We keep it spam and disinformation free. I'm in the process of finishing a book. It's called Alien Contact: The Difficult Truth. Should be out within probably the next month or so. And pick it up. It's going to be well worth the time to read, and it's going to be well worth your money. You'll never feel ripped off. I promise you that. And thanks again for having me on the show. It's been quite fun, and I hope we open some eyes.
This has been really interesting, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Everybody needs to listen up, because you don't know how much reality is in this. And
almost nothing you see is what it appears to be.
I want to thank Anna for calling in.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was very, very good information.
And I want to thank everybody else in the chat room: Jenny, Kevin, Stardust, Dita, my buddy Dita, and my buddy Big Bird there. All the people listening in via phone, what have you, we appreciate you. We couldn't have a show without you. And Derek, I really want to thank you for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
You have no idea how interesting this has been.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and thank you again for having me on your show.
I look forward to this all week, because I knew it was going to be great.
So did I.
Yes, we'll definitely have to get him on again.
Yeah, we're going to have you come back sometime here in the future, and of course, by then, there'll probably be some changes going on, and more things to, discuss and warn people about. And
you never get to the end of it. No matter how much you learn, you can never learn it all.
Well, that's just like in paranormal. You never know everything.
Yep.
Always learn more. So
there's so much, like the Fatima case.
Yep.
We could go on forever and ever.
Yep. I've studied for 50 years now, and I feel like I've barely learned anything, and I've only found the smallest tip of the iceberg.
Dita said CJ's being an old poop tonight. She's not talking, giving us no, actually, Dita, CJ's audio is not working, so you can't hear her. That's the reason she's not really hadn't got in here a lot. So
we know you're giving us moral support, CJ.
Yeah, there you go, moral support. We can hear her, but y'all can't for some reason. I don't know what the deal was with that, but anyway. No, she wasn't being an old poop. Y'all just couldn't hear what she had to say, so she quit saying.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you for having me on your network. I sure do appreciate it. You're a very nice lady, and I appreciate the chance. It was very interesting, and I'm going to go have a cigarette right now because I'm shaking like a leaf.
I've got to close this down. Once again, thank you everybody for coming. And this is live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. And you've been listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your hosts Roger Belt and Cindy John Pierre. And our guest has been Derek Tyler. Come back and see us next week when we shall have Jeff Hale and the paranormal team out of Louisiana. It'll be interesting. We'll see y'all next week.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
until we're dashed upon them. Like waking up and blinking off the sun. No one had made me reconsider this success. 'Cause yes,
the eye of the owl is open at night, watching shadows hide day and night. Peace and strife, life and the mind. She is the song, the lullaby, secrets shared in twilight. Warning screech, hunters descend, watchful whispers, we observe it. The eye of the owl is open at night.
the morning star burns brighter on its own, but we overflow. The hardest part of flying is letting go. The hardest part of flying is letting go. And there's so hope for landing, but I would rather make a stand and take your hand and crash. Like waking up and blinking off the sun. No one had made me reconsider this success. And yes, the morning star burns brighter on its own, but we know the hardest part of